My involvement in Total War goes back to the mid-90s. So at that stage I was working for a publisher, and I was actually responsible for working with Creative Assembly to float the idea of really redefining the strategy genre. And then a few years later I was approached by Creative Assembly in the UK to set up Creative Assembly Australia. And that just seemed like an opportunity too good to refuse. We started working on our very first project in conjunction with the UK studio, and that was of course Rome Total War. And that was, to say the least, a huge success. So I guess the challenge for us was to figure out how we were going to better that. The opportunity that came our way was Medieval 2. That was an opportunity for us to take the foundations that had been laid over the last 10 years and to really take the strategy genre to the next level.
Rome Total War was huge, and when we started out with Medieval 2, we we really had to look at something to really raise the bar, from Rome. With the battle engine, what we wanted to do was, start by, really giving it a huge facelift. The player can kind of, get involved and immersed a lot more in the experience.
I think with Medieval 2, kind of wanted to make the combat more brutal and more realistic than in previous games. I think combat in games has been very stereotypically hit pointy. Kind of I stand here, he stands there, we both hit each other until one of us runs out of hit points. I think on Medieval 2 the combat is a lot more realistic. Like if you get hit, you're either going to go down or you're going to die. So we've got to try to make the combat look as frightening and as terrifying and as realistic as possible.
In combat, they'll actually see now a more kind of cause and effect, a bit of weight to the combat. There's the attackers now have strike atoms, and we've got quite a lot in there, but they've also got failures. So if the defenders actually block, they have their attack deflected. So it really gives a good cause and effect there. As well as we've added combo moves as well. So if someone's actually doing well and carving up the opposition, they'll follow on one attack directly into the next without kind of returning back to their default pose in between. There's some quite kind of dramatic and brutal fatalities that happen.
Another cool feature is battle screams, and that is when your unit's morale is high, your men will shout out taunts at the enemy or encouragement, depending on the situation. So it really adds this feel of being much more involved in the battle than ever before.
For me, I work extremely closely on the battlefields day in, day out, and it's the part of the game that I see. There's a tremendous amount of hard work gone in all areas, particularly what we've done on the battlefield. It just looks impressive. When you look at the in-game movies, people are assuming that they're pre-rendered things, but they're not, and it's all in-game. Just the scale that we've managed to bring into Total War is far beyond what anybody thought we'd actually get when we started this.
We started out by definitely focusing on the battle engine, and we've had to go through and re-engineer a lot of the AI to support all of that.
We are trying to make the fighting much more organised. We want the AI troops to stick together more, don't break formation. We want to make it harder for the player to pull computer units apart, and this should make computer armies much stronger. Another area where we thought battle AI can improve is the usage of terrain, and in particular we implemented ambushes, so troops that can hide in forest will do so.
When we first sat down to look at AI, one of the big ones was settlement AI. We felt that settlement battles in previous titles were a little bit it was a bit sort of just watched.
So we need to be able to have AI that can defend everything from tiny little village with no walls up to huge three-ring citadel.
Because the settlements are much more complex in this game, Castles have multiple rings of defense, and they will take probably larger armies, and they will require much more careful planning.
By simply changing that mechanic, the AI to support that completely changed how settlements look. Right, as soon as you press that button, you see stuff scurrying all over the place, and it feels very, very real.
Well, at first, when we sort of sat down and we sort of started prototyping ideas for Medieval 2, we sort of sat down, had a look at Rome, and we thought, okay, everything looks fine from a distance. You see your massive armies and tons of soldiers, and that's really cool. But then we found when you sort of got a little bit closer, medium distance, and then close up, when you want to actually see the action going on in the battle, we found that because everyone looked exactly the same, it sort of took you out of the game, out of the immersion factor.
We've removed the attack of the clones. You know, all of the men now are individual. They've got variations of bodies and shields and helmets and weapons and all those sorts of things.
The men are built out of random parts that we sort of supply the engine. One unit of peasants or peasant spearmen will be made out of 5 different random arms, bodies, legs, heads, faces, helmets. And all that sort of builds the base for the individual look of each character. And after that, we go ahead even further and we give them sort of individual shields and weapons as well. When we sort of watched the battles go on, we thought, oh, what we can do is we can add sort of dirt and blood overlays to these characters. So that way you'll get guys in the front who have been in the action, they'll be getting dirt and blood sort of overlaid over their character textures. And that way they sort of look different from the guys at the back who are sort of still fresh and clean and ready to go.
Along with that, not only the visual look, but we've also added a little bit of individual behaviour to them as well. So they all animate differently as they idle, and in combat they've got a lot more variety of moves and finishing moves to really kind of give them some character and personality.
One of the major advances in this game is that every character animates uniquely. We choreograph all the animation before they are motion captured.
Well, basically you want to see what's cool. So what is cool? And that's a pretty vague sort of thing, but it's basically getting out there and just having a go with a stick or make-believe sword with someone else and going, well, we would like to have this character die by getting his head cut off, for instance. How can we make that look cool?
When you sort of look at all these things incorporated together, you've got the multiple body parts, the shields and weapons varying. When it all comes together, it really looks awesome on the battlefield.
The player will see these huge detailed cities. It's quite impressive actually when you get the lighting just right and you've got all the men fighting inside a large castle, and masses of destruction going on as well. That's all pretty cool.
The biggest areas personally for me are the settlements and the castles, and I've worked very hard with a lot of the other people to bring in whole new technology on that end, make them fully destructible, bring them to life a lot more within the battle. One of the biggest wins we had, particularly with the settlements, was allowing the artists and designers to plan and design multi-level castles.
Building our cities, we made them relatively flat, and the skyline is normally dominated by a large feature such as a church or a mosque, depending on which faction you play on, where the castles are kind of a typical medieval feature, so we didn't want to disappoint there, and we've got some absolute monsters, 3-tiered walls, and large keeps dominating the skyline for those, generally put on top of hills and bristling with towers. We've also employed an organic way of building them, rather than most RTS games where they kind of employ a clone building structure, where they essentially make a few buildings and then distribute those hundreds of times as just duplicates to create a city. We've actually got a organic sprawling city where there is no clone buildings whatsoever, and the artists have literally built tens of kilometres of unique cityscape. I think everyone's sick and tired of seeing buildings sink through the ground in games, and we want to do something a lot more believable for Medieval 2, and the system we've employed there is localised damage to the actual point of impact from artillery.
with a whole new production system for all the settlements and the castles and double ring walls, we were allowed to bring in a lot more gameplay and improve the siege battles beyond measure.
The changes that we've made to the environment, and the way that that's presented, from the changes to the new skyboxes, the time of day, the weather effects, the new vegetation system, and we generate over 30,000 maps, using this system. So, which is a daunting task.
Well, our terrain is much more evocative of tactics in this game. We have hills with only one entrance, so you can set up artillery or archers on the top and defend it. We have valleys that you can rain fire down onto. We have rivers running through that cause the units to have to only cross at one point, which adds to the strategy.
We've got a new graphics engine, and that's allowed us to kind of tweak the system. Some of it's not kind of visible on the surface, but we've done a lot of kind of stuff behind the scenes to improve the performance of the terrain rendering and the vegetation rendering and stuff like that. We've written a new grass system which lays out carpets of foliage over the battlefields, which looks really nice. Also with the new settlement types, the artists have much greater control over where they can place the vegetation. So we've kind of built upon what we had in Rome and kind of just polished it and taken it to the next level.
We draw a lot of our research for the environments from some of the people we have in the studio. We have a pretty diverse team here from around Europe and England, so we had a lot of input as to how the different environments should look. We wanted to take it a step up from Rome and try and create unique climates and environments across the world map. So we paid a lot of attention to the colour and the types of vegetation that grew in each climate.
Changes with the actual type of ground that you're over, so you might get in more lush ground, you'll get lots of flowers appearing up, but in other areas it'll be thinner and look more barren and sways nicely with the wind. It's a small thing, but in a nicely forested area it just makes the scene really come alive.
Basically, we were going for a more cinematic feel to the game. So the ways we went about this, we kind of we heightened the detail in the skybox textures, so they're a lot more movie-like, a lot higher detail. We've added bloom as well, so you get a nice soft look to the game. Those nice bloomy skies that you see. We've also taken one step further with the shadows, and programmers have implemented some true depth shadows, so everything is realistic and cast shadows how they would in real life. Finally, we've added dynamic weather, so it's kind of cool, adds a bit of variance to your gameplay experience, but it also makes you change your tactics.
I worked on the lightning. We've got the dynamic lightning system that allows the designers to kind of script lightning. We start off with the thunder in the distance, and kind of the lightning can actually roll in and over the battlefield and pass, and the sounds of the thunder will move as it progresses and stuff. It looks really quite cool, quite spectacular.
The original Medieval was itself a pretty large and expansive game, and I wanted to bring at least one new element into this product. So the Americas seemed an obvious thing to do. And it gives you something interesting to do towards the end of the game. You can sail away, discover this completely new civilization.
Well, the Aztecs developed obviously away from the Middle East and Europe, so they look very different. They're quite colourful, and they don't have steel, so they use weapons made out of stone and wood and obsidian. And what they lack in technology, they tend to make up in fierceness and numbers. And the Aztecs don't have horses, but they do have some pretty fearsome warriors, such as the Kuchike and the Eagle warriors and Jaguar warriors, which are all very spectacular to look at and quite hard. So the European factions won't be able just to walk in and take over the Aztecs. Any success they have, they're going to have to really fight for.
So the real thing that the Aztecs bring is mass. Their capital city, Tenochtitlan, was quite possibly the largest city in the world at the time that they were discovered. They had very, very large armies. The European forces that were crossing the Atlantic obviously had very small forces, so it's an interesting confrontation between large primitive forces and small technically advanced forces.
Probably the new agents as well would be one of the major improvements. We've got all these different characters where you can improve the financial aspect of your empire, take care of religion. Basically you've got a lot more options about what you can do with your empire that doesn't involve battle. You've got merchants which come from your markets, and you can send them on to trade resources around the map to establish trade lanes where you get extra finances to fuel your war efforts. You've got priests who spread religion in the regions they stand in. That way you can control the religious sort of breakdown that's in all the different lands. If your religion's not dominant, then your people get unhappy, so you take control of religion with them. We've also got inquisitors, which are other religious agents that come in and will actually start denouncing characters and trolling them by heresy in the game. That way you actually have to take care of your religion, so there's multiple characters involved in religion. We've also got princesses, which you can use as diplomats and also to try and steal foreign generals.
I think it's difficult to sort of simplify religions in a way that you can turn into game mechanics and something that's going to be fun and challenging to play with. And I think we did that through adding it sort of as a layer into the campaign and something that you have to manage in your civilizations, and you have to take in a lot of different factors and use, build up your churches and use your priests.
There's also the possibility that the Pope will take a hand and send an inquisitor to sort out the heresy if you don't deal with it yourself. The fun thing about inquisitors is that while they'll help you out with your heresy problem, once they've dealt with that, they'll start looking around for other heretics, and they may decide that some of your characters are heretical and start trying them and burning them at the stake.
One thing I really wanted to do was let the player get a sense of what the other party was thinking. I thought that might have been lacking a bit in Rome, so we wanted to add speech into the game so you can actually hear what the other person is thinking of what you're doing. So if you make an offer that's really quite demanding, you'll hear the insulted tone in their voice. There's lots of traits that we've introduced with agents, but probably my favourite are the ones you get for executing prisoners to drive your dread up. We basically let you get a reputation for acting nasty or nice in the game.
The two big things that you get in medieval warfare is the development of armour, and there's this arms race between people strapping on more and more armour and people developing different ways to defeat that armour. So the missile side, you start from fairly weak ordinary bows, long bows, crossbows, and eventually people invent guns, which makes armour redundant.
Gunpowder nearly completely changes the tactics on the battlefield. First of all, it really improves sieging. You get access to cannons, which are far more powerful at destroying walls than the old traction trebuchets and catapults previously found in the game. The next big change is you actually get access to men with guns. And at the time, guns were unheard of, which when faced with this, terrifying loud belch of fire and smoke, the initial guns would just actually scare people more than kill them. They weren't very accurate. They didn't have a lot of range, but geez, they were noisy. So yeah, it's going to really change the battle at the end of the game.
And of course, with the invention of gunpowder, it's been very exciting. We've been able to make massive sounds with all the various artillery in the game. And we've tried to accurately reproduce the calibre of each cannon, from the smallest culverin up to the massive bombard that we have in the game, where the cannonballs are just huge, and it's been great making massive sounds. In fact, my ears are still bleeding.
We have a few fantastical units in our game, especially getting near the end of our time period. We have a lot of cannons, we've got mortars, we've got multi-barrel cannons, we've got trebuchets that can throw diseased cows, but then we get onto our really fantastical list, which are our rocket launchers and our elephants. We have some elephants in our game that have small cannons on their back, which is really just to add to the terror and shock factor of these giant troops. And on the other hand, we have the Mongols bringing in rocket technology from their conquests in Asia, and they're a whole lot of fun, firing 36 rockets just spiraling out of control on the battlefield, which can create a fantastic spectacle of mangled body parts.
The Medieval 2 soundtrack covers a huge period of history. It represents cultures from across the whole globe, and it moves through a whole range of moods from contemplation to intense battle.
And because the game is based all over the world, different regions had different types of instruments. When you send your troops forward to battle, it feels really good to hear these drums kick in. And then when your troops finally hit the enemy and there's melee starts and battle starts, the battle song kicks in and the tempo goes up again, and then you've got battle music, which is just really intense. Now on the battle map though, the music is based on the region that you're in. So if you fight in the desert, you'll hear Arabic kind of music, or you fight the Aztecs, you hear Aztec music.
The Aztecs are a new and fairly exotic faction in Medieval 2, and I wanted to start fairly organically to get a feel for their more primitive nature. So we had some great percussion jams here in the studio, and we used a mix of traditional percussion and more organic skin drums and even seed pods. Music is one of those crucial layers that can bring the whole game together. We've tried to cover an incredible amount of musical territory to really reflect the grandeur of Medieval 2.
What excites me personally about this industry generally is we're part of a rare breed of people. We've got the opportunity to actually work at our hobbies. We've got an opportunity to actually get paid, to have fun, to do the stuff we'd be doing even if we weren't being paid. And that's an incredible opportunity, and I'm certain that there's not one person on this large team that would ever take that for granted. Every person on the team realises what a fantastic opportunity and what a great privilege it is to work on a game of this quality. There's no question that Medieval 2 is truly going to be something very special. Everyone asks me what faction I'm going to play. Well, being Australian, I'd have to say the French. Why, I hear you ask? Because how else are you going to kick the Pommies' butts? Nah, only kidding. Yeah, no, I'd have to say the French.
I've actually been really enjoying playing the French. There are two reasons for this. One is that because they start surrounded by enemies, that there's always something going on. And the second one is actually the audio. The guys have done the accents and the speech for them, have done such an absolutely great job with the French. I just love the way they talk.
Looking forward to playing the Turks because of their variety of siege weapons and unique units like the different types of elephants. It should be a lot of fun.
I'm really looking forward to playing Denmark. I'm Scandinavian myself, so you know they're my first port of call. Also, Denmark has a lot of brutal heavy infantry, and they're the kind of guys I really like to play with. So yeah, most of all, I look to bring terror from the north.
Probably France, just because so much of the dev team is English and can't stand France, so I'm going to enjoy sticking it to them as France.
I think I'm going to play the Turks. They have a great set of units, the elephants, the camels, and of course their whaling in the game is just awesome.
I'm looking forward to playing Egypt because they have such a varied range of units ranging from very heavy armoured Mamelukes to more light desert cavalry, and any army that has people throwing basically medieval versions of napalm hand grenades has to be a good thing.
I really enjoy hit and run tactics, so I'd have to say it's going to be the Mongols and the Turks, and yeah, I'll find the one that's got the best exploits to make me win the most online, so yeah, whichever one allows me to do that.
I think the French. Yeah, probably the only English person that will play as a French, so why not?
I think I'm really keen to play probably one of the Islamic factions, like the Turks or Egypt. I spend a lot of time working on the Western factions and the Catholic factions. I spent a lot of time working on Catholicism and the Pope, and I'm really sick of all that.
Well, given my cultural background, I'll probably say Russia. Because of their cavalry, because of Cossacks, who in the history they were professional soldiers, basically mercenaries, and those cavalry units should make quite an interesting experience.
Oh, it'll have to be the Scottish, otherwise my mum will kill me.
Probably Portugal, I'd say, because they sort of start off with two separate, distinct areas, and it's sort of got Spain in the middle there. So you know, it's sort of one of those hard ones to play.
I'll probably play as the Turks because I like the. I'm very fond of Arabic music, and I like their accents are cool, their units are cool, the whole desert thing is cool.
I don't really have a favourite faction. You love them all? I love them all. They're like your own children. They're all special in many different ways. So it's kind of impolite to pick on one.
Oh, it's going to be the English. We're going to go crusading again. Go and find some French.
Well, the thing is, right, the thing I like about medieval is you can actually get to play the Welsh. But the bad thing is that you're actually fighting for the English. I reckon they should change that. I reckon Wales should have their own faction. Or it should be an expansion pack. Something like Wales Total War, maybe.